Welcome back to Protecting and Preserving Wealth. I'm John J. Gay. I'm joined by Bruce Hosler and Alex Corey of Hosler Wealth Management. Gentlemen, great to be with you.
Great to be with you today, John.
Hey, John.
Today we're talking about the IRA 10-year rule for beneficiaries. The IRS just finalized the new rules on July 18th of this year, 2024. Where do you want to start, Bruce?
So let's just start with that. We had all those Secure Act rules come out on the IRA rules. You know, they were proposed regulations at that time, and people don't realize when the proposed regulations come out, those are the regulations that we have to follow, even though they're not finalized. But now they have finalized them, and it caught a lot of people off guard. Now, prior to those Secure Act rules from 2020, we used to have the old Strech IRA, and a lot of people remember those rules. Alex, talk to the folks about how the old Strech IRA used to work when parents used to die and leave their IRA to their kids.
So the way it previously worked, when a parent died and passed on those IRA assets to their children, the children were actually able to take out a small required minimum distribution based on their actual age, and they could stretch that out over their entire lifetime. And then when they passed away, if their children were inheriting those IRAs as an example, then the children could continue on those IRA RMDs for over their lifetime, potentially just as well. So it was a great tax strategy just to allow small amounts of money to be taxed at ordinary income rates. And it was a great way for everyone to get their money as an inheritance without a big tax burden.
And you talk about a legacy. What a great legacy if you have an RMD of 4, 5, 6% and your account is earning 7, 8, 9, 10%. The IRA could continue to grow during your child's life, leaving a longer stream of income to your children. It was a great legacy tool. But unfortunately, with these finalized regulations, we're now subject to the new 10-year rules. And the 10-year rule basically says that once you die, your IRA has to be distributed within 10 years. This whole idea of leaving a lifetime legacy is shut down. The IRS gets their distribution in just 10 years, no matter what. That's the worst case. So it basically ruined the ability to leave a Strech IRA for the rest of their lives.
Bruce, what you just said about the IRS is exactly what I was thinking, that the idea behind this had to be that if folks are able to just pick off a little piece of this every year for even into a next generation, the IRS wasn't getting their piece of the pie. So my guess is the mentality behind this was, you know, we've talked about the shortfall that the government's facing down the road. The IRS wanted to get their money.
That's part of it. And the other part of it as well is that the IRS doesn't believe any longer that if you worked all your life and you saved all this money in your 401ks and the IRA accounts, you earned that money, that was yours. And now they no longer believe that should be passed on to future generations because that generation inheriting the money didn't actually earn that. And that's another reason why they're trying to really empty out these accounts. But there's also those tax reasons why, with our debt being as high as it is, that they want their money.
Let's talk about the RBD. So the RBD is your required beginning date. It used to be 70 and a half, and everybody was confused, like, why is it a half year? Just like the 10% penalty, you have to be 59 and a half. You can't be, 59, it's 59 and a half. And it used to be 70 and a half. Well, with these new regulations, they have now extended the required beginning date for your required minimum distributions to be age 73, but your required beginning date is actually the year after you turn 73 on April 1st of the year after you turn 73. That's your required beginning date. And I said April 1st, not April 15th, folks.
Yep.
Don't make that mistake. It's April 1st that's your required beginning date. Now, Alex, why do we not recommend to our clients that they wait until the required beginning date? Why do we want them to take their distribution the year they turn 73?
We want them to take it then because if you wait till the year after that, then you're basically double taxed on 2 RMDs in that 1 year.
That's right. You have to double up your income, and we don't want them to do that. So what if a client dies prior to their RBD? What are the rules for the RMDs for those clients, Alex?
So the rules are that if an owner dies before the required beginning date, that there are no annual RMDs during that 10-year window. However, at the end of the 10 years, the full account balance must be distributed.
So if they haven't taken it out yet, that is the IRA owner, if they haven't started to take the RMDs, the kids don't have to continue those RMDs. So the ALAR rule, or at least as rule, applies. So once someone passes their RBD, now they've started taking RMDs. And what the IRS has said with this new rule is, hey, if you've started RMDs, we want it to be at least as much as, and the amount is not the same because it's based on the beneficiary's age. So we have to look at the charts, but they have to continue to take those distributions. Now, Alex, we just saw the regulations here. We look at what's going on with the waivers. We've had waivers since 2020, 21, 22, 23, and now the IRS just came out and gave us a waiver for 24. So people that inherited IRAs, they've had these waivers for 5 years.
That's right.
What happens next year in 2025, though, Alex? What has to happen now?
So what has to happen at this point, if the owner died, again, after the required beginning date and they were beginning to take their RMDs and you inherited that IRA, you've got to play some catch up because now you've only got, let's say, 5 years left to go before that money must be distributed. So you have these waivers all these other years, there's a pass, but now the IRS is saying now it's time you need to start taking out your RMDs every year and getting the money out of that account.
Well, let's think about it, folks. If you had $1 million IRA and you left it to your child, they've had waivers for 5 years. They haven't been taking any out. That $1 million IRA is probably grown, and now they have 5 years. That means at a minimum, they probably have got to be taking out $200,000 a year on top of their other income,
What you're saying here, Bruce, you mentioned a moment ago the 10-year waiting period if somebody passes before their required beginning date. And now you're also talking about the 5 years of waivers that we've had. The same concept is kind of at play here, where if you've had years where you haven't taken the money out, you're going to end up with a big whack later on and have to take out a bigger chunk and thus pay more taxes on it.
John, you have hit the nail on the head. Think about these people that think, I don't have to take RMDs, so I'm going to wait until year 10. And then they're going to pull out $1 million. I mean, let's think about it. If you have $1 million and you achieve a 7% rate of return in the markets, if we consider the rule of 72, that million has grown to 2 million. Now your kid has to take out $2 million of IRA taxable money in the 10th year after you die?
That's quite a hit.
What a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And that easily puts someone right at the top tax rates. So again, today, the top marginal tax rate is still at 37%. That's going to sunset in 2 years from now. That's going to tick higher. So now you can keep adding more dollars that go towards the IRS. You keep a portion, but they're going to get a bigger chunk.
So it sounds, guys, like you're talking about, especially when you mentioned the higher tax bracket on a bigger chunk of money, Alex, that if you have the ability to gradually draw this down as opposed to in a lump sum later on, that in a lot of cases, that's the way to go.
It can help.
Absolutely. It can help them stay in a lower tax bracket and help them do other things. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on this topic is, what if you as a parent, you have your IRA, you've converted it to a Roth? Does that Roth IRA, Alex, does that have required minimum distributions?
It doesn't.
And that's because you've already paid the taxes on the way in, right?
So the rule that really applies there, John, is the IRS considers if you have a Roth IRA that you died before your required beginning date, before your RBD. So if you have a Roth, you're always considered that way. So there's no annual, but you are still subject to the 10-year rule. But think of it in the reverse of what we just said. So if you have a taxable IRA and you're a child, you're what they're going to call a non-eligible designated beneficiary. If you're a child that has to take it out over the 10 years, you should start taking it out over those 10 years so you don't have a big pile at the end of the 10th years. In the reverse, on the Roth IRA, when should those kids take out that Roth IRA? When would be the ideal planning opportunity, Alex?
Well, you want to wait until that 10th year because you get 10 years of growth assuming again, let's say the rule of 72, you can compound it over 7 years.
10 years, over 10 years.
Over 10 years, you got the Roth IRA doubling to $2 million. And at the end of the 10 years, you take out $2 million tax-free.
Absolutely. And you can wait, folks, until the very last month of the calendar year that the person after they died. So it's 10 years later, they can wait till the very end of the year. So you can let it grow all of that year, income tax-free. And that's my message for our podcast today, is that if you leave a Roth IRA to your children, you need to encourage them to not touch it and leave it grow all the 10 years after you pass away.
Great advice. And this stuff is always changing. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast that the IRS rules just got finalized within the last several months here. I know you and your team at Hosler Wealth Management are always on top of these things and helping people tailor plans to their individual situations. Alex, Bruce, if someone wants to come talk to you and the team, how do they best find you at Hosler Wealth Management?
Well, in Prescott, they can find us at 928-778-7666. In Scottsdale, 480-994-7342. And certainly on the web at our website, Hosler, HOSLERWM.com.
We talked about Roth IRAs and regular IRAs. And next episode, we're going to talk about why your kids won't be able to convert your IRA to a Roth IRA. We'll talk to you next time. Securities and advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Forward-looking commentary should not be misconstrued as investment or financial advice. The advisor associated with this podcast is not monitored for comments, and any comments should be given directly to the office at the contact information specified. Any tax advice contained in this communication, including any attachments, is not intended or written to be used and cannot be used for the purpose of 1. Avoiding federal or state tax penalties, or 2. Promoting, marketing, or recommended to another party any transaction or matter addressed herein. The accuracy, completeness, and timeliness of the information contained in this podcast cannot be guaranteed. Commonwealth Financial Network does not provide legal or tax advice. You should consult a legal or tax professional regarding your individual situation. Accordingly, Hosler Wealth Management LLC does not warranty, guarantee, or make any representations or assume any liability with regard to financial results based on the use of the information in this podcast.